everyone, Treasure Troller here from the partially mask-wearing militant state of Michigan, where we have Gretchen Whitmer as our governor and dictator for the next 4 years. Today's vlog is just another one of the rambling vlogs. It's kind of like things are surprising but not surprising. I just really can't get over the recent deaths, I can't even say it anymore, deaths of some rather well-known people at relatively young ages. People just seem to be dropping. First we had Damar Hamilton, the Buffalo Bills football player that had to be brought back to life, not once but twice. Just the other day, Diamond from Diamond and Silk, she was like 50. There was a 21-year-old cadet at the Air Force Academy that was walking to class and dropped dead. And then I saw in the paper last night or online where Charles White, the former running back for USC and the Heisman Trophy winner, he was 64 and he died, and he didn't score against Michigan in the Rose Bowl. He fumbled the ball before he crossed the goal line, but they gave him the touchdown anyways. 64 is a pretty young age to be passing. And of course, the first thing, not surprisingly, that people say is, did they get the jab? So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's just we have access to information almost instantaneously, that we find out so quick about these things. It makes it seem like there's a lot of them, but I don't know. It just I guess the thought of growing old and then dying is not quite the option that we all thought it was. It's happening to very young people, and it shouldn't be. It's rather tragic. I think it probably just reaffirms the fact that unfortunately no one's going to escape it. Nobody wants to die, but everybody wants to go to heaven. So that's the first thing that's a little bit surprising, but not surprising. I don't know why they're dying. We just do. I guess it was my grandmother, after my uncle or her son had passed away. I guess probably the most profound statement that my grandmother ever made was, when it's your time to go, you go. So there you have it. The next thing that's surprising but not surprising is Joe Biden. Joe Biden hides some paperwork, and then they find the top secret classified stuff. Does it surprise you? Does it surprise you that he has that kind of shit laying around? I don't think it should surprise you. It was never that big of a deal to begin with, even with Trump, but no one thought ahead. No one really thought this thing through. So it's not surprising that Joe Biden is taking a little bit of heat, and rightfully so. and rightfully so. So then we had I guess the most surprising thing was the software going down over the entire aviation network. I guess you could say their system went down. And Pete Buttigieg has said this is a good data point to start from, and how we need to fund the FAA better. I'll give you a couple of little screenshots here of how much money the FAA gets. One of them is a discretionary account. They can spend it any way they want. But I think Treasure Troller knows what happened. I think what happened was they were trying to upgrade from Windows 3.1 to Windows 98, and they skipped the Windows 95 upgrade first. They should have went 3.1 to Windows 95 and then Windows 98, and then they wouldn't have had a problem. So I'm sort of surprised that the entire country's network is, I don't know, maybe it just seems weird, surprising that the whole system kind of went down, and then they had to use the backup. But why all of them, sort of like we can all be on, let's say, Yahoo, and then we can hit refresh at different times and get a new refresh, and so we're all on different networks, and I don't know why everything's tied into one network. Why they wouldn't, I guess you could say, be tied into regional networks that ties into the main network, so that I guess 3 or 4 regions could be up and maybe one goes down. I don't know. But someone didn't test their upgrade before they put it into live action role play, which is a little surprising. So will someone lose a job or get fired or reprimanded for this? Doubtful. The other thing, kind of not surprising, was nurses' strike in New York. Of course, it's the union nurses, and they're picketing for more staff, which sort of lower nurse to patient ratios, which, I don't know, kind of runs contradictory to walking out of your job. I don't know how that helps the patient staff ratio when the nurses aren't there. You know, they were heroes a couple of years ago. They were heroes. And now, after 2 years, they're just nurses. Back to the same old problems. But it's not like there's a whole bunch of nurses out there that a pool of unemployed nurses. That is just not a reality. So I can only imagine that when they bring in the contract nurses and have to go to these agencies to get nurses there, when they find out those nurses are making twice as much as what the union nurses that really, at that point in time, all they cared about was patient staff ratio. When they find out that all these other nurses are making twice as much as they are, Well, if you could have paid them twice as much, you certainly could have paid me twice as much. I would have been much happier, yet disgruntled. I would have been disgruntled. But for making twice the pay, I guess I wouldn't have walked out. So eventually it will come back to money. And then the last thing that surprised me is that rat bastard Lamont. So he hasn't posted the video yet, I don't believe. He said he was going to. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But that rat bastard, I heard him talking about how he couldn't find a van. So see, all 10 of you now will be in on the joke. So he kept talking about how he couldn't find a van, and everyone that had van for sale were, Espanol. So I told them, I talked to him on the phone. It's difficult to get a YouTube baller on the phone, but we talked maybe a week ago. And I said, there's a couple vans up here in my area. And for sale, and I'll get you the info on them. So Monday, I had an appointment in the morning. So when I got back, I went in, and one of the vans was gone, and the other one was still there. So I took some pictures of it for him, and I sent him the pictures. I said, hey, if you want, if you're interested, you get it, the price you want, you could fly up to GR and I'll take you to it. He's like, well, then he goes, well, I wouldn't buy anything north of, I don't know, Kansas or some shit like that. So he says, well, can you send me some more pictures? So I thought that was kind of odd, but what the hell? I went back to the van. I was only like a block away. And I take some more pictures of it for him, and then I send them to him. And so by the time he called, just after I sent him the pictures, he calls me. And he goes, I already talked to the guy. I said, you talked to the guy? And he said, yeah. And he says, what, did you really think I was interested in that van? So I said, yeah, I did. Surprisingly, I did. But that wasn't the case. So apparently he called this guy and got him upset. So maybe he'll post that. I would be surprised if he didn't. But there just aren't any real surprises anymore. As far as politics, what's there to talk about? It's the same old, same old. I'm waiting to see if the Republicans actually start doing some investigating into some of this stuff. That might be interesting. But I just don't have the sticks, hex, and hammer in me to just pontificate on the obvious 2 or 3 times a day. That's surprising. So with that, this is Treasure Troller saying aloha and good day.